Simekha, it sounds like more people, at least in these few phone calls, more people are not going to vote.
Absolutely. And I think the message is slowly sinking that if really this was going to be an election, it shouldn't even be a source of conflict. The only conflict we should be seeing is a conflict of ideas. And we saw it before 8th. You know, Kenyatta and Raila have been very bitter competitors. But before 8th of August, the conflict we were seeing was only a conflict of ideas. And, you know, once in a while they throw barbs at each other and so on, but nothing beyond that. But look, what we've witnessed from the 8th of August until to date, a lot of deaths, a lot of destruction of property, a lot of anxiety, a lot of... what is in the air really is not healthy for the nation. And that should not be the environment in which you hold any election.
Would you say the country is more divided now than before?
Sadly so, Jeff. Sadly so, that this nation is totally divided. And that should have been the wake-up call that, hold on a minute, should we hold an election, whatever it is, at any cost to the nation? Or should we first ensure that the nation is together? You know, why if there are people, sometimes I've heard them use the word cry babies. Even when babies cry, they have a reason to cry. Stop and find out why they're crying. If they need a change of diaper, change, and then move on. We should have stopped and find out why are there all these complaints. And then sort that out and then move on with an election.
Look, Simekha, even when you see the Pope praying for Kenya,
yes,
at this point, when you see all the forces are so divisive, if you will, where are we heading? Where are we heading post Thursday?
You've heard the word precipice used a lot, you know, and you know what that means when you are really on the brink, you know, like standing on the edge of a cliff, a very deep cliff. We are really insisting on pushing ourselves as a nation in that direction, you know, and that is just not good. I can't even find the words to express myself, so the most I can say is not good. It's extremely dangerous, and yet it is stoppable. It's incredible that we watch ourselves going hurtling towards a cliff, a very dangerous cliff. We have the ability to stop ourselves, but we insist, no way. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep going. It doesn't matter. It's something is wrong with us.
Let's see what happens when we
are on the other side.
Yes.
When we fall off the cliff.
Then we will fight
more.
Yeah.
Also, there are suggestions that, you know what, people can just go vote. Those will vote to just go vote for Uhuru, by the way. Then we calculate everything. Then we minus Uhuru's vote on that day. Then the answer from the total is Raila's votes.
What do you mean? Say that again.
From registered, from number of registered voters.
You understand?
Yes.
The people will vote.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
And they will vote for President Uhuru
Okay.
Kenyatta.
So let's say 10 million.
10 million.
Okay.
Then we take a total number is what?
19,611,423.
That's it. So if it's 10 million who have voted, Raila automatically gets 9
million.
Yes.
So where do you leave Ekuru in that case?
By the way,
is Ekuru part of
speaking of Ekuru,
is he part of this?
I hear there could be trouble in that.
I hear the running mate wanted to pull out.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Frederick Okango insists that's just rumors and fake news. But it's overwhelming. One, people are fleeing Third Way Alliance, and two, the running mate might pull out anytime now. Anytime today. Have you heard that, Simekha? I don't know.
Yeah, it's been in the air since yesterday. It's been, it's very strongly spreading all over that the running mate, could make that announcement today. As we say, where Mahali kuna moshi, there must be a source of that moshi.
Correct.
Somewhere.
Correct.
So, but anyway, I would say let's give him benefit of doubt and wait.
Yes.
Until they make
that actually happens.
There's this sudden change in Ukuru's tone that is very disturbing from what he used to be. I mean, the person I knew he was.
Yes.
And even remember, Ekuru was one of the first people to first concede, then again reconsider their conceding.
Yes. Reconsider their conceding.
Then again, now
he was enjoined in the Supreme Court decision.
Yes, fighting to really be in the ballot papers. But suddenly it just changed.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Money is a great motivator.
Are you sure? Did you just say that?
I said money is a great motivator. In general.
In general.
Simekha, you said something really profound here, and us Kenyans, we have the ability of shooting ourselves in the foot every time. Every time.
This time we are shooting ourselves in the groin.
Oh.
Yes.
Calvin Klein copy. Heavy. So this is painful.
Absolutely, very painful. But we still insist, firing again and again and again.
Is there is there a window here, Simekha? Is there a window where we can pull back, if you will? Can we redeem ourselves?
There still is, and those who hold that, if the windows have keys, the key to that window, the shutter to that window is the IEBC, is particularly the chairman, in his capacity not just as a chairman, but as a returning officer, the national returning officer of the presidential election. It is him who can pull that shutter and say, look, this is still open. Let us not insist on this charade. Let us sober and calm down as Kenyans, and let us speak to each other and sort out the mess in our electoral system and organize a presidential election.
And he should do this between now and Thursday?
He should do this between now and Wednesday. I would say he should do this between now and Wednesday.
That's 48 hours, Simekha.
Yes.
48 hours.
Yes.
Simekha, I don't know if you're a lawyer or maybe what is the constitutionality around the 26th? The Constitution supports this?
Yes, I know a few things about the law. Through training, practice, and so on. Yes, I mean, I said earlier that the Constitution stipulates, within what period a repeat presidential election should be held if and when the Supreme Court annuls the results of the previous election, and that is 60 days. And initially, the IEBC said 17th, which was within the 60 days. Then they did away with it and said 26th, which is still within the 60 days. The period is not the bone of contention, although many people, especially in Jubilee, love to talk about this period. 60 days, 60 days. That's not the bone of contention. The bone of contention is the other bit that they like to hide away in strict compliance with the Constitution and applicable electoral laws. That's the bit that is the bone of contention. And from the beginning, ab initio, as I told you, IEBC began to flout that. The chairman immediately actually acknowledged by firing off that memo that he did to Chiloba, which was leaked to the media and to the public.
Right.
Basically acknowledging that actually we messed up. Can we now clean up and comply with the orders of the Supreme Court? And anyway, not just orders. Why do we need to wait to be ordered? With the expectations, with the call of our duty as IEBC. Now, we didn't know what was happening until recently, when Akombe spoke and the chairman himself spoke. Then we discovered, all right, now we know what's happening in there. There are people who are opposed to this strict compliance with the Constitution and electoral laws. So I would say people who are keep shouting about 60 days, go easy. Look, I don't know if you guys know about the 1/3 gender rule, and that the Constitution gave strict timelines.
Correct.
And that the women's movement even went to court, and the High Court affirmed that. Supreme Court actually affirmed that and said, look, Parliament ensure that you enact this law within this period.
Right.
It still hasn't happened.
Yeah. And the
has Kenya stopped being?
No. And the period expired.
Yes. How come these same politicians, and they've had the majority in Parliament? Jubilee has had the majority in Parliament. How come they have never shouted about the expiry of this constitutional period?
No.
Twice we've gone beyond it. We're still beyond it, and we haven't done it. We're still a nation. We're still telling ourselves we have a chance to enact the 1/3 gender law in Parliament.
One day.
Yeah, God willing, inshallah, it will happen.
Simekha, tell me, the electoral laws which are sitting on the president's desk right now, and he said that he's perusing them, he's going through them. Do you think they'll be signed between now and Wednesday? And if they are, how will they change things?
He may sign them, but there won't be of any consequence in some instances. For example, as at the time Raila Odinga withdrew on the 10th, I believe it was, there were only 2 candidates. IEBC had only 2 presidential candidates
on the ballot.
Yes, and the applicable law, which is still the applicable law to date, was and still is that if one withdraws, then the election stands cancelled, and then you have to organize, beginning with the nomination. But then the decision of this High Court, Justice Mativo, was made after that. You know, that the law does not apply in retroactively, backwards. And you know, High Court decisions are part of the law. Even Supreme Court decisions, they become part of the law.
Right.
So you would say, well, Mativo changed the law, you know, this called case law, changed the law using his decisions, and said that, no, these other candidates can also join in. But too late. By the time he was making that decision, already Raila Odinga had withdrawn, and only 1 candidate was left. And what applicable law, as at that time, said, if that is the case, fresh nominations, fresh elections, within 90 days. So even if he signs just now, there won't be any implications on some critical parts of this presidential election.
What about that part that says if one candidate withdraws, automatically the other one is declared president?
Yes, but that law will begin to apply the date he signs and gazettes as commencement date. It has to be gazetted by the minister responsible the commencement date. That hasn't happened. So as far as we are concerned, that's not law. Even as we speak now, those are just proposals.
And if it's signed between now and Wednesday?
It's still too late to change that, because at the time of withdrawal of Raila Odinga, it wasn't law. The law was different. It still is what applies today.
Right.
So whichever date he signs it in law, it won't have any force of law. It won't apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simekha, how did we get ourselves in such a mess? What happened to us?
I know, yeah.
I mean, you must ask yourself as a lawyer, what happened to us?
Yeah, how did we get here,
Yes.
and why?
And why?
And how can we get out?
Yes,
Most importantly.
Most importantly, how can we get out and just build the country?
Yeah, you know, we have had this problem of exclusion, whether anyone believes it or not, even if it's just by perception, since independence. The challenges of inclusive governance, we've had them since independence, where a small group of people, hold the levers of state power, and of course they come with a lot of benefits. Political power, control of instruments of violence, economic opportunities, name it. We can't finish it the list this morning, to the exclusion of a huge section of the population, and that the agitation has been there pre-independence, post-independence, to date. Now we thought, I should believe that most Kenyans thought from 2010. After the promulgation of the new constitution, that finally we have a foundation that determines how we share power in this nation, how we share the management of our public affairs in this nation. But the words have to be translated into act. We have to write them in our hearts, not just leave them in that little booklet called the Constitution. We have to believe in the values that we've written in that Constitution. So we have people, unfortunately, at the helm of state power, who actually strongly oppose that Constitution. Have they written those values in their hearts, really? It appears not. So we are not living the values that we've put in our Constitution. The exclusive hold on to levers of state power continues, in spite of what we call devolution, because some people tell you, but hold on a minute, we have devolution, we have governance all over, why are you talking about exclusion? I'll just simply say, look at the budget that goes to the devolved governments and what remains with the national government. Look at what the national government controls in terms of resources, privileges, state power, and so on. You cannot compare. So that's where the problem lies: exclusion, whether real or perceived. Both are important. The moment a section of the population even perceives that they are being excluded, the people in charge ought to stop and say, hold on, come, let's talk. What is the problem? And all the time we ensure that as a nation, if we really want to build a nation, we are moving forward together, but not having a section of the nation feel like they are being excluded.
I want to believe that, you see, Raila's withdrawal, or withdrawing from such a huge process of election, must have had a few things to be signed at time and things like that. But his withdrawal was verbal.
And a letter. And a letter to the IEBC.
Did he send a letter?
He did send a letter, which was acknowledged, yeah.
But he didn't sign so-called Form 24A.
Yes.
Form 24A. Does this, again, still include him in the ballot box?
Not
in
at
the
all.
Ballot paper?
Not at all. That story of Form 24A is based on Elections Regulations 2011, Regulation 52 and 53, which talk about withdrawal of a candidate, and it's premised on a nomination process. That after a nomination process, if any candidate wishes to withdraw, they must withdraw within a period of 3 days after the nomination, and in so doing, they must then fill that Form 24A as a declaration of withdrawal. Wow. In this repeat election, post Supreme Court decision of the 1st of September year 2017, there was no nomination. Okay. So those regulations do not apply. Otherwise, you're saying that we can pick one bit of it and apply, but the other bit, the mother bit, because the withdrawal is premised on nomination. there is no nomination. So what are you withdrawing from by filling that form? So, I mean, Raila people, I mean, think he has access to some of the best legal minds in this country.
Yeah.
He went through a serious process of considering every avenue available to him in terms of how he could withdraw before he made the final decision.
Was that the difference between NASA and Jubilee and all this? NASA has a battery of brilliant lawyers. Let's face it, Jalas, we've been talking about this all along.
That's true.
Battery of brilliant lawyers.
He does have,
who know their law.
yeah, he does. Raila does have access to some of the best legal minds in
And
this.
what's happening with Jubilee? Are there lawyers?
I have no idea. I can't answer for Jubilee.
No. You see,
You must look at them and you must laugh and say, which law school did these people go to?
I have sometimes even debated with some of them, and some of them who are seniors to me by far, and wondered, like, did you just say that? Really, where did you learn that? You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes I've had reason to, even the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, I'm sorry, I mean, a professor of law, sometimes he's made statements which in law, to the best of my knowledge, they leave me puzzled. Like, what happened to him?
Prof. Wow. Simekha, best case scenario going forward?
Best case scenario, let us stop. The IE Chebukati, particularly in his role as the returning officer, not as chairman of IEBC. There are two roles fused in one.
Right.
As the national returning officer, need to call people to order. And in fact, he should stop begging. And I also look at him, he is supposed to be a lawyer. He is a lawyer, at least he's an advocate of the High Court.
Yes.
And I listen to some of the things he says and wonder, how do you read your law? Observe returning officers in counties and constituencies. They are very powerful. They don't beg candidates for meetings. They order
And
that they want to see all the candidates.
And they show up.
And the candidates show up. If you have some other commitment, you really have to go and plead with him or her. And then he or she will tell you, then we must agree with your competitors before we set a new date. They make orders and candidates follow. If they see the temperatures are too high, returning officers can suspend, and it's happened, suspend campaigns. They don't consult those candidates. They just make it public. We are suspending campaigns. Everybody follows that order without question. What's wrong with the national returning officer? He's going to beg, consult, subject his decisions to voting. You do not subject decisions of a returning officer to voting. You may subject decisions of the chairman of IEBC to voting. But with regards to an election, when it's happening and you are the returning officer, it's good practice to consult, but not to subject the decisions of yourself as a returning officer to voting.
Has he been too soft, Chebukati?
I wonder whether he has a spine, at all. Because
At the same time, worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario is if we insist on proceeding with this, whatever is being planned for 26th. You see, then the confrontations continue, the controversy continues, the environment gets even worse, because those who will benefit from whatever happens on 26th will insist that, this is our right. Those who are opposed to it, will continue with the struggle to topple whatever that kind of scenario, and insist that, let us have the change that we are looking for in this country, so that the Sharia never repeats itself in future. When we have that kind of confrontation of titans, and here, again, we need to remove it from two individuals, because it's not about these two individuals. The message that Raila Odinga is pushing is a message that millions of Kenyans believe in. The message Uhuru Kenyatta is pushing is a message that millions of Kenyans believe in. So it's not just two individuals.
Yeah.
It's the entire nation. We cannot afford the continuation of this kind of confrontation. But if the side that wants this to happen on 26th insists, then I suppose, looking at the history of the nation, we just have to go that way. Because, by the way, we've never in this nation achieved any reasonable form of reform, especially in national governance, except through struggle. Yeah. We haven't achieved in parliament, we haven't achieved from state house, from anywhere else, other than struggle, and most of the time in the streets. And then eventually they relent and we achieve. And
what does that do to the atmosphere? What does that do to the climate, especially for investors, for people wanting to get back to work, manufacturers? What does that do? Does it become even more toxic?
Of course, it holds us back. It holds everyone back, actually, because now it's like everything else. Most of the other responsibilities get suspended because we have to focus our energies on this fight on governance. But you see, this fight on governance can go on if we act as ladies and gentlemen at the same time as other processes, nation-building processes. But when it's so intense and protracted, then you have to suspend other things, whether you like it or not. By default, they get suspended. And then you focus on this struggle, on this fight for good governance. So yes, it draws back on the gains, particularly economic gains, social gains. It divides us because there are people, Jeff and Jalas, who do not understand the details behind this. They just know that our survival, as we've been told, is based on us voting Kenyatta back against those dangerous laws. There are people who are also on the other side who are told our survival is based on us supporting what Raila says against those Kikuyus, you know. So there are people who don't understand the issues. It's about emotion now. And actually there are people who deeply believe it's about their survival, but not based on a good understanding of the issues. It does have survival issues in there, but you need to understand the issues, because otherwise you start killing each other without knowing exactly why you're doing it. Yeah.
And it's going to get to a boiling point, won't it? I mean, it's inevitable.
It's very close to it. See what's happening. Any little thing sparks, actually ends up in death. Look at what's happening with the police. They are so panicky. Any little thing, and they go invading people's compounds with the APCs and guns and shooting people.
Terrible. That young boy.
Look at that.
Bunty Sirha.
Yeah, look at that. It's extremely unfortunate, and we must walk back away from where we've pushed ourselves as a nation. The nation will not die because that we haven't had this so-called election. In fact, the nation will have a chance to live longer when we stop what we are insisting on doing and say, okay, let's talk. What is the issue?
Wow. Finally, give us some final thoughts going forward. We talked about best case scenario. We've talked about worst case scenario. Give us the real word, the last word.
I think for the people of Kenya, I mean, as someone has said, I think one of the callers, everyone has a right to to believe in what they want. Sometimes you say, even if you want to be stupid, you have a right to be stupid. But I would encourage people to try and educate themselves and inform themselves a little bit, even though they may have a right to be stupid. Because it's for our own good, all of us, and for us as a nation. This is an existential struggle, not in the sense of using emotion to believe in the scaremongering, that is being fed to us, but it's an existential struggle in the sense that we are fighting for the soul of the nation. How is the future of Kenya going to be? I would encourage everyone to reflect very strongly and understand that the best case scenario is we stop what is going on and we insist on having national dialogue. No, not this thing they call that let's dialogue about sharing government and so on. Not about a few individuals. In fact, it's gone beyond them. It should be taken away from their hands by the Electoral Commission as the referee and say we are stopping this to have national dialogue, so that we can move forward as a nation. Because if we proceed with 26 in whatever manner, and the outcomes of 26 are made to stand using force or violence, then as a nation we may be as good as dead.
It's the Hot Breakfast with Jeff and Jalango.